All right, I want to welcome everybody to the steering meeting for August. Welcome everybody back. We've had a little bit of a break, so we're going to get to everything right now. So let's start off with approval of minutes, and I call on Vice Chair Pettis-Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have received the minutes as well as all members of the committee. I've gone through the minutes. I haven't found any problems with them, and I also have a copy here if anybody would like to see them. Mr. Chairman, I move for their approval.
I have a motion. I got a second? Second, Commissioner Beverly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, let's move on. Next is public comments. We had nobody sign up, so we'll move on from there. Next, we want to announce the Codes Enforcement Adjustments and Appeals Board vacancy, 3-year term to expire September 2023. Now we want to confirm Mark Lee and Jennifer Watson to the Stormwater Advisory Committee. I'll need a motion for that.
So moved.
Have a motion. I got a second? Second, Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's move on. Next is Judicial Commissioners. We have, I believe, 6. Brandi Dover, Lowe, Ethan Conklin, Suzanne Kauffman, Jacob Flatt, Kenna Dill. Is Ms. Dover here? Ms. Dover, come on up. To all those that are judicial commissioners, what we ask in this committee is that you speak, let us know who you are, and get an idea of why you're doing it. And come on up. Yeah, just get on that. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Brandi Dover. I'm with the Town of Smyrna. I have been a judicial commissioner since 1995. I have a bachelor's degree in paralegal studies, and so I'm asking for reappointment.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, ma'am. Lowe.
My name is Laura Lowe. I'm also with the Town of Smyrna. I have been with the Town of Smyrna for 18 years now and have a bachelor's degree in accounting.
Any questions? Thank you. You don't have to be intimidated. Ethan Conklin.
Hi, I'm Ethan Conklin. I am a judicial commissioner for the Town of Smyrna. I was previously a judicial commissioner for Rutherford County for 2 years, and I am studying criminal justice.
What do you do right now?
I'm currently a judicial commissioner for the Town of Smyrna.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Suzanne Kauffman.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Kauffman. I'm a judicial commissioner in Rutherford County. I've been there since 1998, and I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I would like to be reappointed.
Any questions? Thank you. Jacob Flatt. How are you doing?
Good evening, committee members. I'm Jacob Flatt. I'm the supervisor over the judicial commissioners for Rutherford County. I've been doing that since 2019, and I'm asking to be reappointed. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Jacob. Kenna Dill.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kenna Dill, and I am seeking reappointment as a judicial commissioner. I've been a judicial commissioner for the past 25 years. 25 years.
Thank you. All right, y'all met them all. So do I have a motion to confirm our judicial appointees?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Rather. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Congratulations. All right, let's move on. Next, is our attorney here? Next is discuss executive meetings on pending lawsuits. All right, let me try to explain this the best way I can. We're going to let Nick talk. First thing is he's going to tell us what an executive committee is. And the second is when we have situations to where there's settlements, and these things are very, very sensitive, and we need to know if we can go in executive committee and talk about those things. So some of this has been brought up to me, and I'm going to let Nick talk. And you got everything? Okay, go ahead, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You asked about this, and it's on the agenda. So an executive session, as the law defines it, is the ability for a governing body such as this steering committee, your other standing committees, or the county commission, to go into a non-public meeting with the attorney to discuss pending or threatened litigation. During those executive sessions, they're, as I stated, non-public, so they're the only people that can attend would be the members of the committee, and in this instance, the mayor, being an ex officio member of the commission as a whole, would be entitled to be present as well at those executive session meetings. In those meetings, I would be able to explain to you the status of the litigations, the procedural posture. I'd be happy to go into more detail, and those information that would be relayed to you would be covered by the attorney-client privilege. Why this is important is, as you know, the state of Tennessee has a very robust open meetings law, which permits individuals from the public to be present and for deliberations and decisions to be made in open meeting. But this is an exception to that allows for us to go into a privileged session to discuss pending or threatened litigation. During those meetings, there can be no deliberation between the members of the body, so we can't be discussing ways to handle the litigation or what we should and shouldn't do. It's merely an ability for me to transmit to you the underlying facts of the case, the strategy of the case, and for you to ask questions regarding the case. That's generally, Commissioner, Chairman, what an executive session is.
So who can call a meeting?
Well, I think generally we have these at the county commission level. So generally the chairman of the commission would put it on the agenda. But I think how it's historically worked, if there's any member of the body that would like to have an executive session, it could be called. For instance, this committee could call an executive session if it wanted to discuss pending litigation. This body could do that.
Okay. Any questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
You said this body could do it. Is that the chairman of this body or any member?
Well, the chairman sets the agenda, and but I'll also note this. If we're getting hyper-technical, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the agenda because it's a non-public meeting. So I would think that if a member of this body would want to have an executive session, they would talk to the chairman and say, hey, we need to have an executive session. I heard about this case. It's interesting to me. Let's have it. And the chairman would then have notice that we need to have an executive session. It could make its way on the agenda. If not, it's okay that it doesn't. We can still have it.
Yeah, just want to clarify.
Yes, sir.
Questions? Thank you, Nick. All right, next on the agenda is Chairman Roundtable discussion. We have 4 chairmen in this committee. Mike's not here. What it is some of the commissioners have called me, and a lot of them read the minutes, and some of them try to watch on TV, but they're wanting to know kind of like if the chairmans want to get together once every 3 months or 6 and discuss what's going on in their committee. So this is just a discussion only. This is nothing else. So what basically it is simply us just getting together and speaking to our members and committee members and answering questions that they may have, and also telling them areas that we want to address and issues we want to deal with. So, like I said, this is discussion on it. Has anybody got something to say on that? As to why or no? Good?
Are we to vote on this, or?
No, we don't have to vote on it. I didn't set it up there for that, but I wanted to discuss it before I asked to go to a vote. So right now it's just discussion. If nobody has nothing to say about it or any concerns, we'll just move on. All right? Next is Will Denami.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I ask, have you checked that through legal?
No, actually I have not. I don't see that as being a problem, but is it a problem?
I think here's what I think. If there's going to be a meeting of multiple members of the governing body, which in this case there would be, it would technically be an open meeting. It'd be subject to the Open Meetings Act. So if you want to plan this and have a quarterly roundtable discussion or a one-off just to see how it goes, you probably need to get with Rachel in the mayor's office and just do a notice, a public meeting, and you probably have it in this room, I would think, and it would be televised, and I don't know if probably wouldn't be compensable because it's not a technical standing committee, right? And we haven't set compensation for that, but there would definitely, you can do it. I'm just saying you have to subscribe to the same rules as any other meeting that you all go to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my whole idea of it is like we do with the delegates, just simply asking, answering questions, because some commissioners are calling me about certain things, and, I refer them always to the chairman, but it's just something we're discussing. This is not something for us to do action on at all, and I'll get to more of that as far as open acts and sunshine law. Okay, let's move on. Next is lobbyist contract. I've talked to several of y'all, and y'all have questions. So let's do this. Let's try to do this in layers. First, we're going to let the mayor, since this is he's bringing this up. Go ahead and talk about your contract, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll be brief. Will Denami, the lobbyist, one of the lobbyists that we retained, is here tonight, and I think maybe he has spoken to some of you. At least I hope so. But nonetheless, this is an extension of the contract that we had with him through June 30 of this year, 2023, with some, I would think, minor alterations to that agreement that Nick recommended. I'm going to kind of put Nick on the spot for just a second. Nick, would you categorize those changes or edits as somewhat minor that Mr. Denami accepted?
I looked at those a few weeks ago, so I'm hard-pressed to remember the exact details, but they were minor in nature. They were non-substantive. It was basic. We need this in all the contracts, boilerplate, just added basic stuff. Right,
and my understanding is Mr. Denami can speak for himself, but he accepted all those minor amendments. So this is essentially just an extension of the contract we had last year. And I understand there's been some questions about reporting and this kind of thing. So there's never been there's been a misunderstanding, I think. But nonetheless, there's not been any effort on the part of the mayor's office to keep Mr. Denami from reporting, no conscious effort anyway. I think it's important that we retain Mr. Denami's services for a number of reasons. Number one, he has a unique skill set. He's been up there, gosh, Will, I was up there. I started in 2008 and you were already there. So that's 15 years that I know of. And he currently works with two or three different counties. Currently, Rutherford County is the largest county in the state that doesn't have a lobbyist representing their interest in Nashville. All the major counties do. In addition, Williamson County, Blount County, and some others do. And I think it's just a good investment, especially given the success and failures that we've had. And we've had some setbacks, but I also think we've had some successes that demonstrate the need. But I'm going to let, if it's all right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to let Mr. Denami come forward, if that's where we're at in this layer, and answer any questions that you may have.
Well,
Thank you.
a lot of us don't know who this guy is, Mr. Denami, so I asked him to come and introduce himself to all y'all and to speak a little bit. And Mr. Denami, come on up. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the steering committee, for allowing me to come be with you today. I want to start by saying thank you for allowing me to work for you from January through June, and if it's okay, since some of you, this is literally, actually everybody basically, this is the first time I've seen you in person tonight, and I wish I had seen most of you before that, but nonetheless, I started in January, and when the General Assembly convenes, I'm there every day. So I'm there in Nashville at the Capitol the entire time. And just a quick background on myself, that I started here in Rutherford County. This was what got me going to the General Assembly as an intern from MTSU. It changed my life. I went back, changed my major. I went to work for the House of Representatives, became a lobbyist in 2007, working for the assessors of property. I've done that, still do that to this day. So I work for all 95 counties. That keeps me involved with county services, TML, various county organizations, and it's helped me develop a real deep understanding of how local government revenue and regulation works. Also, I've developed a lot of long-standing relationships with various members of the General Assembly, but especially in those committees that are the jurisdiction for local governments. I went to law school at night from 2008 to 2012, and then immediately upon graduating started working for Hamilton County, whom I still represent and work for and proud to. From Hamilton County, Williamson County reached out, and then Blount County, also the South Central Tennessee Development District, which is 13 counties, the Davidson County Emergency Communications Board, and TN 911, which is a collection of 911 districts. So local government is what I do, specifically counties. I'm, like I said, proud to be here today, and I want to continue working for you if that's the way you see it. I want to talk a little bit, if I may, am I just going to, yep. I want to talk a little bit, if I can, about this past session, where we are, what we've got accomplished, the work that's still to be done. When I started in January, we were immediately working towards the goal of trying to get parity for Rutherford County with Wilson County and Williamson County. And as everyone in this room knows, those counties have the ability to determine their own impact fees, much like the city of Murfreesboro and many other places. And I do believe that is what's best for the property taxpayers. I think that is, it's in their best interest. This county has been a magnet for families to move to since I lived here in the late 90s, and it continues to be and will continue to be. It probably is going to be the 4th largest county by next year, and I don't know how long it will take to become the 3rd largest county, but it's just a matter of time. I think the cost associated with that, with the growth that comes in, is real. Impact fees, I think you can prove by looking at Wilson and Williamson County, have not harmed the community. They've helped the community. It hasn't slowed down development. It hasn't slowed down home buying. The economy is healthy and vibrant. So the facts are there. I think there's some confusion, and there's a study going on right now with TASER that is going to talk about home prices and affordability. I think there's some conflation between what is a cost valuation and what is a market valuation, but really I think home pricing is really based on the market. And we could go into a lot of detail, which I will with TASER, about that. We started in January, and we were immediately looking to the law, which is an interesting situation where the General Assembly is currently, under present law, prohibited from passing any private acts. So it's a 2-step process. Step 1, they have to lift the prohibition to allow for a private act, and that's what we were immediately working on. And then step 2 would be an actual bill which would be the private act. And of course, as you know, that private act would then have to come back for ratification ultimately by this body. So it's a difficult process, to say the least. I think the amount of work that we've got done in a very short period of time, normally a project like this takes a while. It does. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of people around the table to have that discussion. I currently believe that, and probably several people in this room have had conversations with various stakeholders who are interested in a solution. That's a direct result of the work that we did. The reason why people are coming together and want to find a solution is they realize there's a problem. I think we did a good job of elevating the issue. I think we did a good job of highlighting the challenges, and I think it's really the data speaks for itself. You can see what's going on. It's not, you know, in my opinion, it's easy to see there needs to be more tools for the county. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of work to be done. I've talked to the chairman of the committee following that, the last meeting, and we plan to have meetings all summer. They're going to be back in session probably in 2 weeks. It's a good time. There's a lot of members. Actually, the entire membership will be there. So the opportunity is, you know, now. I don't want to take the foot off the gas if you want to keep moving forward. I think this is the right time to work on that issue. When we finish that issue, the mayor had me start working on the Regional Forensic Center, which for Hamilton County, it's something I worked on for several years. It was a multi-year process. There are 5 regional forensic centers in the state, 2 that are run like counties, which is Knox and Hamilton. Rutherford County will be the 3rd. The other 2, Memphis and Johnson City, are affiliated with the universities, and the Davidson model is really different. It's subcontracted to a private vendor. So the long and short of it is there's 3 regional forensic centers in East Tennessee. In Hamilton County, you know, there was a lot of challenges in dealing with COVID and the amount of deaths that occurred there, and the way Hamilton County is located with the interstates, and people would come into town to go to those hospitals, Level 1 Trauma Center. They just got over flooded with bodies. And so while we made the case year after year, trying to move it forward in the budget process, it made more sense ultimately for the COVID money that the federal government had sent to the state, and we made the justification through the SLFRF fund, and then Knox County followed suit. So once I stopped working on the impact fee, I started working on the Regional Forensic Center. Of course, I stopped working, my contract ended at the end of June, and we made it basically until the very final meeting, and then the Forensic Center was taken off the agenda. Now, I don't think that means the Forensic Center is not done. I just think it, like with Hamilton County, we went from working on the state budget appropriation to the COVID money. I think it's the exact same thing. You'd go from COVID money to working on the state budget, and that process really starts now. I think we've elevated the issue well enough. I think the facts are it's a good investment for the state. I think with the growth that's occurring in Middle Tennessee, if something were to happen to the one facility that services 42 counties, there would be a real problem. There is no backup plan. There's nowhere, I don't know what we would do, and I hope that doesn't happen. But of course, this would alleviate that concern, so I think it's a good investment. These are pressing issues we have right now. Those are the 2 things that I've worked on your behalf. As far as reporting goes, and those of you I've had the chance to talk to ask me about reporting, I will say I've talked to the mayor. We would do Zoom calls weekly, and then I would just give him daily updates on, you know, everything that was happening, and it could be multiple times a day. A lot of moving parts. So I'm going to close if I can with this, and then take questions. You're really fortunate to have such a good delegation. You have a lot of very dedicated members in Rutherford County, and Rutherford County has now crossed into the urban district for the House of Representatives. It means that all your House members will only represent Rutherford County. So their population is not comparable now to outside of the county. That's a big step, and you don't go backwards from that. You just keep going forward. As Rutherford County continues to grow, you'll have new challenges. I think it's important to be prepared and work towards solutions for those challenges. I'd like to be a part of that if you want me to. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Any questions? All right. Jeff?
Mr. Denami, I appreciate you coming here tonight. There seems to be some misunderstanding, actually some miscommunication. Some of us have responsibility for that. The mayor probably has some responsibility. The chairman of the commission has some responsibility. You have some responsibility. One of the concerns that has come up recently is the communication or the failure to communicate to the county commission as to the progress that you're having. Once again, it's not, I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody. I'm just saying that I think that there has been an issue with communication. Are you willing to address that, and what is your plan going forward to keep the county commission informed as to what you're working on and what the progress is?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do recognize that, and how we can communicate going forward, and what I understand, there's a couple of different ways to do that. During actual ongoing session, I think it's best for me to have a point of contact that I can call and be able to talk to. As far as reporting goes, we could do weekly reports, monthly reports, something that gives a summary of the bills that are of interest and the progress that those bills are making. I think that's something that can be done. I do that already for the assessors of property, so that's certainly something that we can do.
Monthly progress reports to this committee is acceptable?
Mr. Chairman, if that's what you want, yes, sir.
Well, let's just go ahead. I'll start. Number one is our mayor has been offered four times on our agenda to give us a lobby report. Now, my question to you, Mr. Denami, is did you email, phone, or talk to the mayor?
Yes, sir.
How often?
Multiple times a day.
Multiple times a day. Did you tell him every time you have nothing to report?
No, sir. I would tell him exactly what was.
Okay. Steering committee, we had this, Mr. Denami, we don't know you. Everybody in here doesn't have a clue who you are, what you do. I find you very impressive, and the biggest thing that we have is we don't know what's going on. So if you're willing to, if we agree to go forward with a contract, you would be willing to come to this committee once a month?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to physically appear and do written both if you want.
Okay, thank you. So when you was working before, how many meetings did you set up with our delegation?
So that's a very good question. So when I started in January, I wasn't the lead, so to speak, of the lobbying team. And my assignment was to work primarily on the committee that we were going to go through, the Property and Planning Committee. So initially, the way it works in the legislature, in the House, you have a 15-bill limit. So we had to find who the House, really working for House sponsors, and everybody does that at the exact same time. So I had, some limited conversations with members of the delegation about sponsoring a bill, but it became very clear very quickly that we were going to go with the bill sponsor from the previous year who was going to try the effort again, which was Murray County and Representative Sapicki. So from that, once that was done, I immediately started working on the House first before trying to move to the Senate. We passed the bill in the Senate, or the bill had passed when it was Murray County last year. In the Senate State and Local Committee. In the House, the only member of the delegation that was on that committee was Chairman Rudd. I met with Chairman Rudd, and I had some other conversations with other members in anticipation, if we were successful in moving the authorization, that then we could follow up with the private act. So the private act is actually on a different filing deadline, and there was no reason to file the private act, although we had started working on drafting it. There was no reason to file it yet until we knew that we were going to have authorization for it. And the authorization was a moving target. We kept trying to modify it to find the exact right combination. We started off we started off statewide, and the mayor had gone literally to Knox County and various counties throughout the state, and we were building a coalition of other counties that were interested in being a part of really getting the same tools for counties that cities have, by and large. Not every city, but most cities already have those tools, and most counties do not. So that's where we started, trying to just get general fairness between city and county government. So my outreach on that issue at that time was really primarily with the Property and Planning Committee, where they had jurisdiction over the bill. I didn't mean
And did you set up any meetings with the Realtors or Home Builders Association?
I had numerous conversations, as lobbyists do, in the hallway. We just meet on a continual basis. So the Realtors have several lobbyists. The home builders they had both in-house and then contract lobbyists. At one point, we had to get kind of where we were going, and I did work on a proposal for them to review, which ultimately they didn't agree to. But early on, we were trying to find where they call it sausage making, trying to find out what's potential of what people could go along with, and that's a kind of touch and go, figuring out where the boundaries are and what people are okay with.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to go with Beverly first, and then you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question's a little more direct. Outside of hallway passings, what meetings with our delegation and the lobbyists for the Realtors have you had on our behalf?
On just the impact fees?
We'll start with the impact fees, yes. And outside of in the hallway passing.
So early on, I was looking for who potentially could be a House sponsor, so I reached out to ask Representative Stevens if he would be willing to be a sponsor for the House. But again, ultimately, the decision was made to go with the sponsor of the legislation that had come the year before, which was Representative Sapicki from Murray County. So from that, once we had the bill sponsor, I went and talked to, my first stop was with Chairman Rudd, who's on the committee, and Chairman Rudd made it real clear to me where his position was, and so I didn't want to pester him, or, it was very clear what his position was, so I didn't continue trying to, bother him. And then I just continued working the rest of the committee. I talked to Representative Terry and other folks, Senator Reeves, about what we'd look like if we move forward, what we might be doing after if we were successful getting the authorization for Private Act.
So you met with, if I'm understanding, Representative Terry, Senator Reeves, Representative Rudd, and Representative Stevens, correct?
And I talked with Representative Sparks too about he had a resolution that deals with home affordability and basically the primer question of, do impact fees make homes less affordable? So we also had a conversation around that.
So outside of that, then roughly 5 out of our 7 delegation you sat down with and had a conversation with about sponsoring this or about our intent to pass this bill.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And what about on the Forensic Center?
On the Forensic Center, the 2 members of the delegation that I reached out primarily to was Representative Baum and Shane Reeves. And both of them were very, very helpful in that process too. All right.
Fish?
Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Denami. First of all, I want to give my sincere apologies for my tardiness to everyone and the committee. If there was only a way we could raise more funds for infrastructure improvement to relieve congestion and things like that, it was just bang my head against the wall. Mr. Denami, you said something a few minutes ago that the light clicked on, but I'm not sure of the answer, so I'm going to ask the question. Last year when we did this, did we have 3 lobbyist for the 100,000? We split the pot, right?
I believe it was 3 for 150.
Yeah, can I comment on that, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So what we did is we pooled our resources with Murray County. Rutherford County obligated $100,000. The Rutherford County School Board obligated $50,000, and then Murray County obligated another $50,000. And so we went out and we hired 5 different teams. And so those 5 teams were Mr. Denami, Mr. Matt King, the Venerable Group, the Poplar Group, and Dustin Goforth. And so those were the 5, and the reason those 5 selected was in part, not complete, but their length of service up there, their expertise in dealing with municipal issues or county issues, but also their relationships in the House and the Senate. And I think it's important to note that the questions regarding the strategy that Commissioner Beverly asked are very relevant, but we had a division there of responsibility. In particular, Mr. King and the Venerable Group focused on the Senate. And then the other 3 focused on the House, and then we didn't know exactly where the bill was going to land in committee. And Mr. Denami had a particular expertise in the government committee, local government committee, so he was our focal point there. So that's why he focused on property management. So there was all this division of spoils, if you will, to get it out of committee through the House and the Senate.
That's what I'm trying to put my finger on. It may not necessarily mean that, it may sound like he only saw 5 people, but in reality, there were three or four other firms focusing on other select targets that left him to focus on what he had strength in. Right. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So are we then to assume that this particular proposal is just for you and your firm?
Yes, sir.
So did we let the cream rise to the top and you're the cream, and so we're focusing on your success, or did you rise to the top and we're not going to entertain the other groups? Or you're our man? Tell me about how that.
I would like to be, and I can tell you, I do believe I have a unique qualification and understanding and work particularly on these kind of county government issues, and it's my primary focus. I'm not divided into other committees. This is where I really focus down, and I think that I think my reputation is. Okay. If you wanted to verify that, that's right. Exactly what
so
I do.
Will, let's talk about that reputation. If you are the sole lobbyist for us, and I'm assuming you have a team behind you that you can do the easy lifting, I'm assuming. But do you have that reputation on both sides of the aisle and with those different committees? When you walk in the room, they say, oh, hey, there's Will?
Yes, sir. Okay. That's exactly right, Commissioner. And having the credibility amongst the members of the committee to allow me to speak in session and then also to come visit them on a regular basis. It's taken years to develop that, right. And part of that development is also working with the county associations, and it's just taken a long time. I've been there for 21 sessions now.
And to Commissioner Beverly's point, when the realtor associations lobby and the developers lobbyist, when they see you coming down the hall, they know who you are, and vice versa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. What have you learned? What will you do different if you get to go forward than you? Lessons learned. Let's talk about lessons learned.
That's great. So obviously, I think the very important lesson here is communication with this body for sure. But immediately, I felt like we were behind the 8 ball starting in January. Normally, you would get with the delegation. To Commissioner Beverly's point, you try to get as many people together earlier as you can, and really put that together. So we were chasing our tail in January, trying to find a bill sponsor and putting together a strategy. And that was just the nature of it. And so we were trying to get it done also in 1 year, which is hard to do. The General Assembly typically, it's a 2-year process, so a lot of bills get introduced year 1 and really passed year 2. So we were really going hard trying to get it done. What I've learned is there's a lot of misunderstanding about what impact fees do. There's a conflation of cost versus market in terms of what it does to home affordability. But I think there's a lot more work to do internally with the delegation, but also with the stakeholders in terms of home builders and realtors. I think they're now at the table. I think they're having discussions with other people, because I do think we've elevated the issue now. They get it, that something has got to change. I think some other facts that have kind of broken in our favor at the same time that we didn't have in January is the city of Murfreesboro just exercised their authority on impact fees. Wilson County just exercised their authority on impact fees. The sky did not fall. There were no protests. The things that we were told were going to be really detrimental didn't happen in those cases. And the message that we were also carrying to the General Assembly is the county, Rutherford County, is backed into a corner year after year of this growth that is just, staggering growth, which is a good thing. You'd really rather have growth than losing population. But it results in more cost, and that's evident. I mean, the county had to, and this is what we were trying to tell them in the legislature, that something's got to give. You either have property taxes or some other revenue stream. And so now that data is available. If you look at where the county is today and you look at what's happened both in the city of Murfreesboro within this county and the neighboring county, Wilson County, I think those facts they illustrate that what we were saying is true, and we still have to do something going forward. This is not solved. But I think that the evidence of what we've got right is the fact that those stakeholders are now interested in having discussions, and I think they're kind of looking to different directions to figure out what that might look like in terms of the ultimate solution. It's going to be complicated to figure out exactly what will work, but I do believe if we keep the effort going, I think the solution is possible. I sincerely believe that. On impact fees and on the Forensic Center. And then there will be all the other things that come as well. But those are the only 2 issues I was working on.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 concerns. One of them is the fact that how do we really justify a lobbyist when the people that I have dealings with in my district say, well, we have all our legislative delegation to do our work for us, so the justification for it. And then the other question that I have is, I think in the scenario was that we were to get reports, but I don't recall any feedback what the status of it was. So it's difficult for me to explain to my constituents how we're spending $100,000 for an individual lobbyist when we've got the delegation to do it.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'd like to just point out, we're very fortunate to have a very strong delegation, and their role is to represent their districts and the county and so forth, and they do that well, but they're not lobbyists. They don't work the entire 132-member General Assembly, so they don't comb through all the amendments looking for different, impacts on different industries. That's exactly what the purpose of a legislative representative is, to go through and read all the amendments and bring it to their attention. Each member of the delegation, I think, is going to be as supportive as they possibly can be for the citizens of this county. I don't have any doubt about that. No one does. But that's not their role to go lobby other members. They introduce legislation and amendments and vote, and really have to rely on all the other people to bring them information, and that's where trust and credibility comes in, your ability to understand and communicate effectively in terms of how those issues will play out. And it's helpful when the facts then come right behind you, immediately behind you, and it's exactly what you said would happen. To your point on reporting to this committee, I've committed to the chairman and to the chairman if you like, I would be willing to come back monthly and with written reports.
Commissioner Reed?
I'm glad to hear some of the comments that Commissioner Cush has made here, because those are some of the things I was going to say or ask myself. For over 40 years, my office was next door to a complete legislative department. And when I say legislative department, it was a whole group of lobbyists. I think they used the word legislative department because they just didn't want us to tell everybody they're lobbyists. You know, it used to be with the term lobbyist, you know, you just didn't go around telling everybody you're a lobbyist. It always reminds me of the young man that come back and told his mother and said, well, you got a job today. What was your job? What have you were doing? And he told her, said, Mom, I've become a lobbyist. And she said, oh, no. And on Sunday she goes to church and the preacher said, I heard your son got a job. What's he doing? And she couldn't say it. She just looked at him and said, he's a piano player down at the bar. So I was with these people for a long time, and I sort of understood the way a lobbyist works and how that goes about, but they're very important to organizations and things. But when you mentioned the fact of the team that was involved in what we had here, I'll have to tell you, Will did call me today, and I told Will that I was in the process of calling individuals to check on him. Mr. Chairman, I did my own background check. I mean, that's just what I wanted to do, to find out something about what was going on, find out something about him, that if we're going to sign a contract, I wanted to know something more about him. And as I've told you, I know some lobbyists. So I made a call or two to find out something about this young man. And I'll say young man. I mean, when I look at him, you got to look at somebody getting ready to hit 75 here real quick. And when you're 3/4 of a century, everybody around you, you consider young. So what I have found out, and what I found out concerning our efforts down there, that there was a team. And I found out what he did upon that team there, and there was no way within that team that he saw everybody we think he should have seen, because he had certain responsibilities. Everybody has a responsibility in what you do when you lobby. I also served time down there, and I say served time, it sounds like I was down at the prison, but I was down at the Capitol as part of the press corps. And I saw what was going on down there all the way from the 80s up to when I retired in 2013. And I saw how it works and how it operates and how you're continually moving those halls and how you're continually seeing those individuals. But what I found out concerning Will, everybody had good remarks, good comments about how he works and what he does there. But everyone would say that we never show all our cards to Will, just as he does not either. So he keeps that where it's at. You got to understand too, and I wanted to ask you this as one of my questions there, you're also, I believe, working with Blount County. You're working with Williamson County and one other county?
Hamilton.
Hamilton County. Will those counties, as you are representing those, will that have any interference as far as you're working with Rutherford County? But now, something I want y'all also to understand, he did his first intern work here in Rutherford County. This is where he got his start, which I think something that probably holds us a first. But I just wanted to ask you that. How will those affect you in that?
Thank you, Commissioner. And so I'm very selective on work that I do take on. I don't try to go outside of my scope or do anything that would be in conflict or do anything that's not in some way complementary in terms of the subject matter that I'm working on. And so I stay very limited in what I'm doing. I think that all of those counties are a good fit. I think that Hamilton County and what Rutherford County is about to experience are very similar. I think that Williamson County is also on a growth trajectory, and Blount County is like the Williamson County in East Tennessee. So I see all of those as very similar, and I appreciate the question. And I hope that's answered it.
Any other questions?
Just one kind of follow-up. Commissioner Johnson mentioned the legislative delegation should be our lobbyist. I don't know how to say this other than from my point of view or my perspective. Back in 2000, it was either 2011 or 2012, we unanimously passed a resolution asking our legislative delegation to help us in getting relief from the County Powers Relief Act. Nothing ever happened. There was no efforts made. We never made it really out of Rutherford County. This body in 2018 passed another resolution unanimously asking our legislative delegation to help us as it related to the relief from the County Powers Relief Act. Same exact thing, nothing ever happened. This past year, what I learned or what I observed is the efforts made it out of Rutherford County. We were at least heard in Nashville. We weren't successful in getting what we wanted, but we at least got in the ball game, I think, for the very first time. The concerns that I have is that there is some momentum. I feel it. I feel, as a commissioner and a representative of Rutherford County, I feel that momentum that I've never felt before. And my concern is if we don't continue with what we've started, that momentum will be lost and we'll be back to where we were. It's my concern. Now, once again, we could have done things a little bit differently, but let me just say that we've got a new mayor who's performing a new role that other mayors haven't done in the past. We've got a commission that's being kind of self-governed for the first time, and as the chairman of that commission, I've learned a lot this year, and I'm looking forward to the process continuing on a positive way going into the future. So we made a few mistakes, but I think that that's the way you learn and move forward. It's my hope as a commissioner that we continue with this contract and continue with our efforts to find alternative to property taxes. That's what his job is. And it's not just impact fees. It's, can there something else be done with our legislative delegation to create those type of things? It doesn't have to be just an impact fee. The efforts that I think that we put into this past year, and we did get a late start, the efforts that we put into this past year and that momentum that I think that we've had, I think, in my mind, the way I foresee things is that it will proceed and be even more meaningful this coming year. Once again, I didn't have any experience with lobbyists, none whatsoever. I know Commissioner Reed did, and I think Commissioner Reed was a big supporter of us hiring a lobbyist because he's seen some positive effects that they've had on his employer. So those type of things, once again, are things that we as a commission, I think, have learned. Me as a commissioner, I know have learned. And I would really hate to see us lose that momentum that we've gained. And whatever this committee and the full commission decides, as your chairman, I will support. But as a commissioner, I'd like to offer my support for this particular effort to go forward. I think we've accomplished some things. I think we've learned some things. And what this lobbyist knows I can't even come close to approaching. I don't know how to accomplish some of the things that he has accomplished and communicated. So I don't really have a question other than that comment, and to see if you think that if we didn't go forward with a lobbyist in our efforts to influence what's happening in Nashville, would we revert right back to where we were last year or year before last?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, thank you for those comments. And to your question, in my opinion, you potentially could slide further than where we were. If they see that the effort went this far and then fell apart, then I think the next time the effort is started back up, that's the track record, and that would be the expectation. So I think I think when you start something, you need to follow through and finish it. This is, most people would look at an effort of this magnitude as a 2-year project for sure. Like I said, the facts, I think, have all played out exactly as we said to the committee. This is the scenario. The county is backed into a corner. We're trying to, we named, the initial name was the Property Taxpayer Relief Act. I mean, that was the whole point, was trying to provide relief to the property taxpayers. And now here we are. It's exactly what we said would happen, and the city of Murfreesboro and then Wilson County. I think that all those facts are helpful. If you don't move forward, perhaps there was enough momentum, perhaps enough people just out of the goodness of their heart think, all right, well, let's help pitch in and see this across the finish line. And perhaps they would. But in my experience, after 21 years, I don't think that would be the case.
All right, thanks. Any more questions for Will? Mike, I'm sorry, Commissioner Rather.
Well, I have a question. 3 or 4 days ago, I was convinced to come to this meeting and shoot this down because we spent $100 and some thousand and got 0 return on investment, as far as I knew, or apparently anybody else did. So I'm glad Chairman Phillips brought up communication, and that is helpful. It's helpful in any relationship, my marriage, any friendship, work-related, lack of or miscommunication screws everything up and makes people start to speculate. So that 3 or 4 days ago, that was my goal. But I learned some things since then that we have had some momentum, which is encouraging. Now, our delegation, if I recall, the last time we met with them, brought up the fact that we met with them way too late in the year, that we should meet earlier, that we were behind the 8 ball. And so because we were behind the 8 ball, what did that do to you? Put you further behind the 8 ball. So you had your hands tied quite a bit before you ever started. The other thing is our delegation, one member of the delegation in a video I watched, I think we all did, his gripe was none of us ever called him. Well, guess what? He never called us. He didn't call me, nor did any other delegate. So my thing is, all 21 of us should wear them out and partner with you, wear them out, tell our constituents, give them phone numbers, emails, and let the taxpayers that just had an increase we were forced to do, let them wear them out. Now, I know for a fact when I ran for election, it was by the people, for the people. If they wanted me, they did. If they didn't, they didn't. But if they did, I would work for them. So I would think our state delegation, and I know quite a few of them, I know they are that way. I know it for a fact. Maybe one, not so much, but all the rest of them, yes. So I think it's going to be, in my opinion, a concerted effort amongst commissioners and our constituents that call us, and we just hand out phone numbers and emails. Let's all get together and get the delegation to do their job and be for the people, by the people. I will say it again before I get misquoted. I think our delegation, 99% of them, yes, they are that way. So I got to give them that. So I think we put you in a bad position, and in my opinion, I had no idea. This is my 5th year. I had no idea when the bills were coming out and all that, and we meet in October or later with the delegation. When steering meets with our delegation, is that not in October? January. Later than I thought. The work is already in process with state. So that's why the delegation said, I think they may have said we should meet with them in October. For some reason October was in my mind. So that's, in my opinion, that's something we should correct to give you a better opportunity, to give them a better opportunity to get things done. So, like I said, 3 days ago, I was coming here to say, no, we had no return on investment. We're not spending any more money because we just increased every citizen's tax, well, the majority of them's taxes. But then, as Chairman Phillips said, I think there are some things that we can do on our end. The delegation with us and you in there and momentum, I think we'll move forward. We cannot move backwards. And if we do nothing, you always do what you've always done. You always get what you always got. So we've got to do something. So thank you for coming. And I look forward to monthly finding out what's going on and setting a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner. You know, over time, what I anticipate, as in the other counties, is that as they know to look for me, you know, when a bill's coming up or an amendment has shown up, they'll say, there's Will, I need to find out how this is going to affect the county. That's what I do a lot of on-the-fly analysis. What are we looking at? What is it, you know, because things happen very quickly. New amendments come through, changes. I agree 100% that all the members of the delegation want to be helpful to the county. It's very difficult come January when you're into bill filing. I mean, something of this magnitude with all the stakeholders, with all just the amount of pressure in the history, it just, that's where we are. Now, I think if we're going to meet with the delegation in October, then the homework responsibility between now and then is meeting with stakeholders, because they're going to want to know, well, what have you done since session? What all has happened? And I think there's a lot of work still to be done between now and then. But the sooner we can continue the discussions with the various stakeholders and meeting with the chairman, meeting with the members of the committee who are going to vote. Like I said, they're all going to be in Nashville in 2 weeks. It's a prime opportunity to meet then, and not just with legislators, but also with the other stakeholders, and then try to keep the momentum going, because if we don't want to lose momentum, quite frankly. Thank you, Commissioner.
Chairman McAdoo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also met with him today, and he really impressed me with his knowledge of the two subjects that we talked about tonight. And Commissioner Phillips is exactly right. We tried several years to get a hit on impact fees, and we struck out all those years. It seemed like he got started late, but to me, it seemed like he made it to first base. So with his knowledge that he discussed with me today, it'd be definitely worth a chance to just let him proceed on and see what happened.
Don't need a motion. We don't need a motion. Anybody
Prepared
else?
to give it.
Sir, you don't have to have it. It's up and down. Is there any other questions? All right, my turn. All right, problem that I have, I talked to Will Friday, and I found a very good conversation, and I got to know him. The problem that we have here is the lack of communication between us and the mayor. We don't even know who this guy is until today. Based on every one of your comments, y'all seem to be impressed by him, and it's well earned. But we had got to have communication. This committee is over legislative affairs, not the mayor. We are. And if we have a communication between us and Will, then I think this is something that we can look into and do. And then I can say this: fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me. You see what I'm saying? Fool me once, shame on me, and fool me twice, shame on me. So we need to look at it that way. But I think that 90% of all problems is lack of communication. I mean, it's 90% of all problems. And if we have more communication, then I think that we can do something here. And, you know, I listened to Jeff Phillips, and me and Jeff has been, you know, I've been in this battle with you, Jeff. I've been in this battle with Mike Cush. I mean, we have fought this, and we have gotten our heads cut off. We have gotten scraps. And y'all know that I'm as devoted as trying to get something done as anybody on this commission. But I want us to understand, Will, that if this gets voted, you work for Rutherford County, not any mayor's office or any individual, Craig Harris, anybody. You work for Rutherford County. And we will ask, if this passes, that you meet with us once a month and let us know the situation going on. If there is a situation in which it's sensitive information, I believe we'll talk to our lawyer and we can do something about that. All right? So this is a up and down vote. You either say yes to accept this contract, or no, you don't want to accept it. All right? We're going to do roll call on this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Do we need to clarify and amend the contract to reflect the monthly reports, and that there's potential breach if that does not happen?
That's a good question.
Mr. Denami, are you good with adding something to the agreement that specifies that you'll provide a written and a report monthly to steering committee?
That's fine. I just also want to make sure you're aware it's got a 30-day termination, so you can.
That's a good point. 30-day termination. Who determines that?
You do. You can just do it.
It's 30-day out clause.
Yeah.
Is in there.
So the commission can terminate the contract?
Yes.
Okay. With a full commission vote?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sometimes when the battle gets heated, it may not be wise to wait a month. So I would suggest that the lobbyist be allowed to talk to your chairman as often as he sees needed. And that way we could have even more communication and not have to wait every month. So communicate to this committee every month, and if there's something that comes up, communicate with the chairman in between those two meetings, and we can catch the committee up immediately by phone calls or by memo, and not have to wait a month, but communicate to the steering committee and to the chairman as needed. Does that sound okay, Nick?
I think that's fine. That's probably an organic thing that's going to happen anyway with Mr. Denami in this scenario, and I think he's got it loud and clear, at least I do sitting in this chair, that this committee wants him to report here and give updates about what's going on up on the Hill.
Well, that's fine, but chairman of the steering, we're over this, not chairman of the commission, so those conversations need to be between me and you and him. And then the steering committee, I mean, if it's something that we got to talk about, then I would call a special meeting. But if it's nothing that can wait for the month or whatever, then that conversation needs to be me and you and him on that.
I'm not hung up on who he calls and who he talks to. I think the conversations with the mayor should continue the way they are, too. The mayor is elected by everyone in this county and has done a yeoman's job, in my opinion, as it relates to his efforts to get the county taxpayers relief from the County Taxpayers Act. So that communication process needs to continue, and the rest of it, Mr. Chairman, in my mind, needs to continue as well. So whoever the commission decides that Will needs to talk to, whether it's you or me, it just doesn't matter to me one iota. But if there's something that comes up daily, he can talk to them, or weekly, or something that comes up suddenly that we need to know about, if he can call someone on the commission as well as the mayor, so that we'll know, and maybe we know how to react to it quickly. That's part of that miscommunication that we had, and I just want to make sure all of our bases are covered.
No, I don't have a problem with that at all. Again, the problem is communication. We got to be able to know, we have to go know what's going on. You were over legislative affairs, you six gentlemen, us 7 altogether. So that's what I want us to understand, and we need to be in the know. All right? So, yes, for accept his contract, no to turn it down. Rachel, any more questions before I call for a vote? Rachel, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Again, is this something we want to add to his contract, though, to have it written in there, the monthly reports, or not? Or are we good leaving it as it stands?
No, he disagreed to the changes that would be inflected into the contract. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And just for the record, because that's not clear to me, that's just my own fault. It probably is wise for there to be a motion put on the table on this deal. So just to have it for the record in a second, so that the matter's actually before the body, because without those things, it's not technically before the body for a vote.
Okay. So it's supposed to be an up and down, but you think that it'd be best if we have a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Mac.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we proceed on with this contract with the necessary corrections from the county attorney.
Okay, do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Reed. All right. Any discussion? Go, Rachel.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo. Yes. Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Voting for my constituents, no.
Commissioner Beverly,
Mirroring Commissioner Johnson, I vote no.
Chairman Harris.
No. Motion passes.
Passes.
Congratulations, Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
All right, let's move on. HR report, Sonya Stephenson, come on up.
Good evening, Commissioners. So each of you should have the report. The first one is the 2023 HR snapshot. We're going to focus primarily on the month of July. August does have some information already, but our focus tonight is on the month of July. Our biggest points are we had 126 different leave activities in the month of July. We onboarded new hires. We had 108 activities related to the onboarding of new hires for this month. We had, for recruitment, we had 2,047 different activities. That could be applications received, letters sent, those type things that go with that. Reports and surveys, we had 533, and I'm hitting the high notes. Just if you have additional questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But Under the reports, we had 533 on reports and surveys, and that is primarily reports that we do for new hire reports and the other reports that we have to, Title VI reporting, any of the reports that we have to conduct for state or federal purposes. Special projects, we had 127 different participants and activities for special projects. In testing, we had 109 testing, and that is testing of new hires who they're coming in, whether it be their background checks, their drug testing. This is also our random testing, or any that were fit for duty. Title VI, we had 91 different activities for that. Title VI primarily is the activities where we get interpreters for the courts, and the majority of those activities are that. And we had 154 different training sessions, and that is on unique trainings for this month. What our department has done is we have 3 HR specialists in the department, and we have divided the departments in the county amongst those 3 employees to be a concierge services sorts, like it's a one-stop shop. The Correctional Work Center knows that they're going to call Judy, or the fire department knows they're going to call Jenny, or the constitutional officers know they're going to call Mark. And so we did that purposely to make sure that they never had to question who they had to call. Part of that process is we have a human resources information system, and we have been training the departments how to upload their documentations to the system, but the biggest part is how they can review their employees' personnel files from their desk. So those 154 training sessions were where Jeannie and Mark and Judy have gone out into the departments. We started with the sheriff's office and the ambulance service first because they're the largest departments, and then they're working their way down. They've done the fire department, they've done circuit court. I can't even remember all the departments they've done, but that's what those training sessions primarily are on, is where we spent one-on-one time with those departments. Do you have any questions about the snapshot?
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, more of a comment. I'd imagine with the new fiscal and new positions coming in that led to the increase in recruitment. I just want to commend you and your department for handling that heavy workload, and I see our vacant positions, and that takes a whole lot, so we appreciate you.
Thank you. The team does a great job as far as working with the departments on the postings, making sure that the job descriptions are updated, and assisting the departments with if they need help with vetting those applications. So I appreciate the team that we have. The other paperwork that I've given you, the top page says 8/2/23, and it starts with Ag Extension. Those are the positions that we have posted within the month of July. And the box to the side where it says it starts with Advanced Emergency Medical Technician tells you what date that position was opened on our website and what date it will close and how many applications that we have received for that position. So if you go down through there and look, like the technical support recruit has received 75 applications, a firefighter 2 has received 13 applications, an IT tech 15. Firefighter 1 has received 68 applications. So it lets you have an idea of how many applications we're receiving for specific positions. And some of this is what goes into play when we come forth asking for positions to reclassify. Either the position is being reclassified because of the salary comparison or from our ability to be able to hire. At some point in time, our counterparts may be paying similar to us, but if we're still not able to hire a firefighter and we need a firefighter, we have to look at that, and that's some of the information that we bring forth to you. And that's during budget time, not typically outside of budget time. The next page on the full-time vacancies, this just lets you know the vacancies by location, and I apologize, I didn't realize, I'm so used to working in numbers, I know what Department 801 is, but you don't know that that's OIT. So next time I will adjust that for you, and I'll put the name of the department so that you'll understand what you're looking at. You can kind of tell that 810 is ambulance service just because it's paramedic and advanced EMT, but I will change that for you. So this lets you know how long the position's been vacant, the title of the position, and then also I added a column to let you know how many vacant positions we had per department. So I was just trying to give you as much information as you could about the staffing, the recruiting of each of the positions. The one comment I want to make is, like I do every month, is whenever we give you this snapshot, it's usually through a certain time period in that month, and so oftentimes we have to go back, well, pretty much every month, we have to go back and amend some of the information, like there was some dates, information added for June because reports had not come in yet for those. And the same with the vacancies. It's up until today what we've received, what HR's received from the department. So somebody may have left and we didn't have an updated notice, so it will not be identified in this report. So if you ever look at it and they say, talk to a department and they say, well, we don't have those vacancies, we've hired 10 people. Well, we haven't got the paperwork to start that new hire, so we still think they're a vacancy, if that makes sense. Questions?
Yes. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sonya, and if you don't mind, I won't stand up. And Alan, you may be able to answer this, Chairman McAdoo. Several months ago, we talked about hiring a construction admin or construction project coordinator.
Yes, sir.
And I don't see that listing here. Is that not been posted, or are we awaiting budget for that, or has that been nixed? Or?
Yes, it's still in there. I don't know why it's not showing up on the position 801. The title must have, because I search it by vacant or new positions, but that position is still out there. That position was approved by this commission. It just hasn't been posted.
So it's not been posted for anybody to apply yet?
Not yet.
Okay, but it's coming.
Well, I think it's...
Maybe.
Are you talking about the construction?
Yeah, like a project manager.
I think we were waiting to see what was going to be approved, some of the, to make sure that we would have enough work for this person to do.
I got you.
For lack of a word.
10-4.
Budget, Mike,
Yes, it was approved.
this year.
Do you still need me to respond? Or? Well, the position is still open, but we still have several projects that are not confirmed, and we're waiting to confirm up some of those projects, so we have some work. There you go.
Mr. Johnson?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sonya. This is just a general question. Okay, the emergency management, fire and rescue, and sheriff's officers, is it pretty leveled off, or what's the percentage basically of turnover?
Well, the turnover varies because right after, usually in June, is the month that the majority of people retire. If they're going to retire, they're going to retire before the new fiscal year because that impacts their future cost of living increases through their pension. They have to be retired a full fiscal year in order to be eligible for a cost of living increase. So a lot of people retire in June. So we do see an increase in turnover from that. And to me, that's not bad turnover. That's turnover. Somebody's met that criteria to get to retire. So I didn't bring the actual turnover percentage, but I can start bringing that to you because we keep up with that every month as well. So I can tell you, but the turnover for us had been ranging around 12%, but the last year it went up quite a bit just because everybody's having this, salary wars, in which we know that we've gone through that ourselves of having to stay in comparison. As far as the positions of our public safety department, our fire department seems to do a really good job of being able to get, there's a lot of interest in working in the fire department. I'll just say that. We get lots of applications for the fire department. Our ambulance service, with the new shifts that they had, we've been able to keep a lot of those positions. We do lose some from time to time to other counties for various reasons, whether it's a shift or pay or whatever. The department that we still struggle with, Michael Gregory, he's a smaller department, so he doesn't have as many employees, so he has a hard time keeping people. They do a good job with their training, but it's just a hard, people who love animals just they think it's going to be one thing and it's not. The other is for our law enforcement, and it's a large department, so it's just hard. They interview and hire, 20 people at a time, but the fact is it's just a large department. So I'd say the department that is hurting the most would be the sheriff's office.
Thank you very much. If there's no other questions or anything, Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the report.
Got a motion, I got a second? Second, Commissioner Beverly. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? No, thank you, Sonya.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, look on your iPad, you see a litigation list. Are there any questions concerning this list? All right, seeing there's none, we'll move on. Is there any other business? Commissioner McAdoo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Commissioner Rather had mentioned meeting with the state representatives in October. Is that still on the agenda?
I have not confirmed that yet. They have not returned my call as to doing that, so I will send out a second notice.
Thank you.
Anything else? This meeting's adjourned.